Hi and welcome to this video. Today I'm going to show you the basics of Lightroom and how I edit my pictures. So let's get right into it. The first screen you're going to see if you open up Lightroom is this one. So the library right here. And you will see no pictures here. I already imported some pictures, so you can see them right here. And if you have no pictures here, you're going to click on import in the left corner right here. And then you're going to click on your SD card or your memory card, and you're going to select your card, and all the pictures will be selected. But we don't want this, so we click on uncheck all. And if you do this, it won't import any pictures. So right now, if I click on this picture, for example, I can import it right now. And you want to double tap on a picture, and you can use the arrow keys on your keyboard to go through your pictures and select the pictures you want. If you want to import a picture, you can click on include in import, and you simply can go on and go through your pictures and select another one. And if you're done with your selection, you click on import. I already did that, so I won't do it again. I click on cancel right now. But if you have this view of the image, you don't want to hit escape. If you hit escape, you're going to close the window and you have to do your selection all over again. So if you want the overview, click right here in the left corner. And if you want the picture bigger, you double tap it. And yeah, you can go back and forth with these two buttons. Now I click on cancel because I already imported my pictures. And here you got an overview of all your imported pictures. And if you click on a picture, for example, you can see the metadata, you can see the date and the time and all the settings you've used, the focal length, and yeah, and also the camera. So for these shots, I used my Canon 1DX Mark II with the 24 to 70mm f2.8 lens from Tamron, the version G2. And yeah, so this screen will only give you an overview. You can also tap on develop. And if you hit develop, here is where you edit your pictures. So you will see your pictures right here. On the bottom, you see all your pictures. You can click through them and you select the picture. And on the right side, there you will do all your editing. So on the top, you see the histogram, and there you see the left side are your blacks, your shadows, your exposure, and your highlights, and your whites. This gives you a pretty good image of how bright your image is. Of course, it shouldn't be too bright. You see, if you go to the triangle right here, that in the picture there's going to be red, and this means that there is no information. This is completely white and it's lost, no matter what you're doing. On the left, there is also a triangle, and there you can see on the floor where it is blue, that the information is also lost. This is complete black, no matter what you're doing. So now let's get into editing. So the first tab you're going to open is this one. It's called Basic. There you will find your profile, for example, Adobe Color, Adobe Landscape, Portrait, Standard, and Vivid, or Monochrome. If you apply one of those, the whole image changes. Landscape get more saturated, Portrait is flat, and Standard is also a very standard profile, but I will always leave it at Adobe Color. These are the basic settings. So the next thing you're going to do is you can change your white balance if you messed it up, or you simply want another look. And yeah, I will make it a little bit warmer in the shot because it's a sunset shot, and you can play around with the exposure. You can make it a little bit darker or brighter, but I think it's very bright already, so I'm going to make it a little bit darker. You can increase or decrease the contrast right here. I'm going to increase the contrast, and you can bring back your highlights, for example, and lift your shadows to get a flat image. So there you will get more information, but you don't want to overdo it. So you don't want to minus 100 your highlights and plus 100 your blacks, then you get a very, very flat shot, then that you don't want. Yeah, so we're going to decrease the shadows and increase the highlights, so we get a little bit more normal looking picture, not as flat as before. And yeah, then you have also your blacks and your whites. You can play around with these too, but I won't do it because I do this in my tone curve, which I'm going to show you in a minute. So right here is your clarity. You can decrease it to get a more soft image or increase it to get a more harsh image. And yeah, I'm going to decrease it a little bit to get a softer look to the image, which I like for this one. And yeah, there's also your dehaze, and you can use it as you want. In this case, it's pretty nice because it was pretty hazy on that day. And yeah, so, and your vibrance and your saturation right here. But we're going to leave that for now. And we go into our tone curve. The tone curve is basically a curve which affects the whole image. And here are your shadows, here are your highlights, and here are your midtones. And by double clicking, you can delete the point. I'm going to apply 2 points in the highlights and in the shadows right here. And I'm going to decrease my shadows a little bit and increase my highlights a little bit. So you can see right here how it affects the image. For more control, you can click on this button right here. So you click it and there you will see there are your highlights, lights, darks, and shadows. And you can simply use the sliders to increase the highlights and increase the lights or decrease the lights, for example, and increase the darks or decrease the darks. You can play around with it and find your style, find out which setting you like more. Depending on the scene, different settings are producing different styles, so keep that in mind. And yeah, this is basically the tone curve. If you hit the button again, you could go back to your normal tone curve. The next thing is HSL and color, but we're going to look at that later. Now we're going to split toning. Split toning basically that affects your image that way that you can apply a color to your highlights and your shadows. In newer versions of Lightroom, you can also affect your midtones, but I do not recommend to do that because it's not that easy to do, and I think that it's not necessary to change your midtones. So your highlights and your shadows is all you need, and I'm going to show you why. You're going to increase the saturation and the shadows. So you can see it right here. You got red in your shadows and green in your highlights for now. And you can change the color and you can see which look you're going to produce. So there is a very famous teal and orange look, for example, which is something like this. And then you're going to decrease it to a low amount, something below 10. So 5, and you can use this switch to turn it on and off. I'm going to increase it a little bit so you can see it. So 9, and now you can see how it affects the picture. So it's a little bit too much for me because you see on the ground that's not really, that's a little bit too blue. So I'm going to decrease it to something around 5. And yeah, I can turn it on and off. It's also a little bit blue, so I also can change it. If I don't like it for this picture, I can change it to a little bit more green, yellow, and check if I like it more like this. And the shadow's a little bit more to the red side. And yeah, so you can play around with it and find your own style and what you like. So you can use any color you want. So the next thing is detail. And in this tab, you can see sharpening and noise reduction. So basically what you're going to do is you want to zoom in pretty close. You can set your zoom in range right here to whatever you want. I do 3, 2, 1. And now I'm going to look at the shots, and if you hit the Option key on your keyboard, your picture will turn black and white if you're moving the slider right here. So now I'm going to increase the amount. I'm going to increase the radius and increase the detail. And now I'm going to mask the shot, so only the lines I want to sharpen are going to be sharpened. So something like this, and you can turn it on and off, and you can see the before and after. It's a little bit too much for me, so I'm going to decrease the amount, and yeah, something like this. And yeah, that's pretty fine. So the next thing is lens correction. So you want to zoom out, and you can tab right here, remove chromatic aberration. Chromatic aberration are the lines which are purple and magenta, and you don't want these lines, so you want to hit remove chromatic aberration to do that, and enable profile correction. You can choose every lens right here, but it will detect your lens if it's not a manual lens, normal lens which communicates with your camera. You will have all the metadata, and it will select the right lens for you. So the Tamron 24-70 f2.8 G2 is the right lens, and it's doing a pretty good job. You can use those two sliders to change the vignetting back to as it was. I don't like it that it's so white, so right here that's not beautiful, so I'm going to apply the vignette again. And the distortion, you can change it as you want. I will leave it at 100, so I like it what it does right here. You can also turn it on and off, and you see how it affects the picture. And yeah, the transform tab we're going to talk about in another video. And the effects right here, you can increase the vignettes right here. So for example, I always do -100 on the vignettes to set all my settings. So the midpoints, the roundness, the feather, and the highlights going through, so something like this. And then I go to the amount and I set it as I want it to be. So something like that. You can also see here the before and after. If you want to apply a film look, for example, you can add some grain. I always like to do something around 20 and 30. So we're going to with 25. You can see it, so you're going to increase the roughness to around 80. And now if you zoom in, for example, even if you zoom in not that much, you can see that there is grain. If it's too much for you, simply decrease the amount right here. So yeah, something like this. And yeah, but I didn't want it for that shot, so I'm going to decrease it to 0, and it won't affect the picture anymore. So you have also the HSL and color tab right here, and the calibration tab. We're going to talk about both right now. So the calibration tab is basically how you set your camera calibration, how it determines your greens, reds, blues, and your tint. So if you slide it, it will change the whole picture. If you change the red primary slider, it's not only affecting the reds, it affects all the colors in the red spectrum. So, and also for the blue, you can see right here, it affects the whole spectrum. So if I increase the saturation, you can see it a little bit better. So right here, if I move it to the left, you can see what it does to the whole image. Not only the blues, it affects every color. So you can play around with this. I always like it to do it extreme. So you go all the way, check how it affects the image. And if I like something, so you turn up all the colors, and yeah, you can see the colors much more clear, and you can, it looks terrible that way. So I'm just using it to get something nice. So I decreased all of it right now. And if I want the colors to pop, I'm going to increase the saturation of the blue primary. This will increase the saturation of every color. So you can see right here, and also the green I can add red. So this affects the whole image. And you can also use the switch right here to turn it on and off. And yeah, it's a little bit too much for me. So I'm going to tap this, go back, and I'm only going to, yeah, use something like this. And then you have the HSL and color tab. So here you can find your hue, saturation, and luminance. With your hue sliders, you can change the individual colors to, you can red to your more orange, or red to more magenta. And you can use your orange and change your orange to something you like more. But you need to do this very carefully, because you will mess up your pictures otherwise. So yeah, if you want, you can make it a little bit more red or reddish. And yeah, that way you get a pretty nice look. You can also change your blue, for example. You can see it right here, how it affects the picture. You can basically do something like this. And if you go to your saturation, you can set your saturation. Also be very careful with those sliders, because you will mess up your pictures otherwise. So I will decrease my orange a little bit. I can increase my reds a little bit. And let's see what the yellow does. Yeah, can increase our yellow a little bit and increase our blues. And then we go to luminance, and you can decrease, for example, the blues in your pictures. If you decrease the luminance, it will get more saturated. So if I decrease orange, for example, it will get more saturated. And increase my yellows a little bit, because the sun is bright. And yeah, going back to my saturation, going to decrease the yellow a little bit and decrease the orange. And yeah, something like this looks pretty good. And if you're done with all of this, you want to export your picture. You can use, you can simply export one picture by right-clicking on your picture, click export, then this window will open, and you can choose a folder where you want it to be saved, and you can choose a file name. You can also use a custom name with original file number, for example. And yeah, you can also set your quality, in which format you want to export your pictures, so as JPEG, PSD, TIFF, DNG, or original. And you can export your JPEGs, and you simply hit export and it will export your picture. And you can also use commands to select more pictures and right click and export, or you hit Command A on your keyboard, and with Command A you're going to select all your pictures. Yeah, and that's basically it. This is how I edit my pictures in the basic form. In the next video I'm going to show you some tips and tricks how you get even better results And I hope I see you guys in the next video. Subscribe to the channel, activate the bell if you want. And yeah, I see you guys in the next video. Bye.